The purpose for our gathering this morning is to, as much as possible, communicate and be very transparent in our dealings as far as the support for the victims of the unfortunate situations in recent past. We know the spillage of the Akosombo Dam, as well as the heavy downpours that were experienced in the northern sections of this country, actually affected a lot of people. And particularly, the recent one, which involved the spillage of water from the Akosombo Dam, caused significant disruptions and distress among the affected population. We are told in the assessment that over 35,857 people totally have been affected across 184 communities. And out of this, again, our assessment indicates that 8,843 of them are currently housed in safe havens, which is about 27 of them in places like North Tong, Central Tong, Shai Usudoku, the Asojaman, Adan East, and Angloga districts. You may also recall that the Ghana Red Cross Society had already taken some proactive steps at the very initial stages to address some of the immediate needs of the affected population. The National Society dispatched 100 emergency family tents and shelter repair kits to these established temporary evacuation centers. And the intention was to shelter at least 600 displaced families. Furthermore, a dedicated team of 80 trained volunteers was also deployed to disseminate critical health messages related to waterborne diseases. They also provided first aid and distributed aquatabs for water treatment, purification, and also ensuring public health safety at that stage. We know the flood also brought in its wake the threats and risk of epidemic and disease outbreak, some of which are malaria, cholera, typhoid, diarrhea, and other intestinal related infections. We also got to know that the risk of snake bites as a result of these animals being driven out of their natural habitats and then finding safer hiding places in surroundings of these communities. The sanitation facilities obviously are inadequate, and this in itself poses a significant risk for the outbreak of waterborne diseases. Additionally, we are also aware there's a shortage of clean water within these centers, and the displaced families obviously also need food supplies, including non-perishable items like blankets, clothing, and utensils for cooking. Generally, many individuals also have lost their source of income due to the floods. There is therefore the need for initiatives that promote economic recovery and livelihood support. Some of the diverse livelihoods affected include farmers, fishermen, artisans, and trading activities. And with no money to buy food, and other essentials, you can imagine the situation on the ground. The displaced families are in dire need of food supplies, as well as essential non-food items like blankets, clothing, and cooking utensils. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the Ghana Red Cross Society, as a humanitarian organization, is actively coordinating and collaborating with local authorities, national disaster management agencies, non-governmental organizations, and other relevant stakeholders to ensure what is principally and ensure a cohesive and effective response. In response to the dire humanitarian situation caused by these floods, the Ghana Red Cross Society is happy to announce a very important partnership with Rotary International District 9104. And District 9104 has generously donated an amount of 100,000 cedis to support the procurement of essential food and non-food items for those affected by this devastating disaster. And we have gone ahead to sign an MOU which defines the parameters within which this support must be manifested on the grounds. Additionally, and quite significantly too, we have had the individual contribution from one Mr. and Mrs. Dennis of Dansoman, and they graciously donated to the Ghana Red Cross Society for onward transmission to the affected, displaced families the quantity of 3 bags of cement, 1 piece of mattress, and a quantity of used shoes. Distinguished colleagues, again, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent, that's the IFRC, through what we call the Disaster Response Emergency Fund, has also provided a relief support in the sum of 462,699 CHF, that's Swiss francs, to procure and distribute the following items to 12,000 flood-affected families within the Savannah and Volta regions. The areas of our intervention as a national society will be in 4 areas. Specifically, will be in the area of 1, livelihoods and basic needs. Again, in the area of health, as well as water, sanitation and hygiene, which we all know as WASH. And finally, family members tracing and reunification. To give you the details, under livelihoods and basic needs, with a target of 12,000 affected people, which we translate into 2,000 households. These families residing in these regions have suffered substantial losses, ranging from partial or complete destruction of their dwellings, and their means of livelihoods have also been affected, such as businesses and investments. Consequently, we recognize the need to extend assistance to these affected households. To address these needs, our intervention proposes to allocate a multi-purpose, unconditional cash grant to these 2,000 households. This support is intended to help them not only in rebuilding their livelihoods, but also to cover essential expenses such as medical bills and other specific needs unique to each household's circumstances. 1,200 families in evacuation centers in these affected areas will receive 1,200 cedis support, whilst the 800 living outside the evacuation centers would also receive 600 Ghana cedis support. In the area of health, the National Society proposes to provide support in first aid and psychological first aid, and this will be provided to families affected by the disaster as well as to the volunteers. This support is aimed at easing the stress experienced from these disasters. And the volunteers will be holding psychosocial support sessions in affected communities and conducting health talks on key health messages relating to flood waterborne diseases awareness. Colleagues, the ongoing flood increases risks associated to public health diseases, like I mentioned, cholera and other related diseases. We are told and we know the Savannah area is prone to malaria incidences. In this regard, there's a need for provision of nets to reduce the risk of malaria. So the Ghana Red Cross Society will distribute a total of 4,000 mosquito nets to 2,000 households whose houses were destroyed, focusing on most vulnerable households with lactating and pregnant women, the elderly, female-headed households, as well as children under the age of 6 years. In the area of water, sanitation and hygiene, that is WASH, still targeting a total of 2,000 households, the Ghana Red Cross Society will conduct the activities as outlined whilst assessments are completed to determine needs, specific WASH needs that are created by these floods. In the first place, we intend to distribute 1,050 hygiene kits for 2,000 families. These kits contain bathing soap, toothpaste, toothbrushes, etc. for household personal hygiene. Again, we intend to provide 1,050 dignity kits to 350 of the targeted females, women and girls of childbearing age, to serve for 3 months. Each kit shall contain sanitary pads, panties, and bathing soap for women and girls. Again, the procurement and distribution of jerry cans to the affected families to enable them store clean water for cooking and drinking. The intention is to provide 2 pieces of 20-liter jerry cans, which will be distributed to 200 households, and tubs that would also be distributed for water purification and safe storage of water over a period of 90 days. A total of 2,000 jerry cans and 180,000 tablets of aqua tabs therefore will be procured and distributed. The Ghana Red Cross Society also would install 50 hand washing facilities at the evacuation centers. And again, under the WASH, we would conduct hygiene and sanitation campaigns twice a month for 3 months. The object here is to clear the debris and remove all signs of the traumatic event. This activity will be coupled with health promotion with emphasis on awareness against the related diseases, including cholera and malaria. A total of 110 volunteers will be deployed and support communities carry out cleanup campaigns. The aim, as I did mention earlier, is to clear the debris in areas where the flood water will be subsiding or receding. Finally, as part of the intervention, the National Society also will be carrying out, as I did mention, family members tracing and reunification, which is very key and very important. We'll be providing and supporting authorities with family tracing and reunification. This will go on for the next 2 weeks to ensure no one is left behind. Volunteers will be trained on restoring family links and will be supported technically from the National Society headquarters to provide guidance as needed. Volunteers are in tracing community members that must have fled and in some cases could not find their way back to their family or relatives. Distinguished ladies and gents of the media, the situation in the Volta and Savannah regions remain critical, and the Ghana Red Cross Society, alongside its partners, remains committed to providing timely and effective assistance to the affected population. And with this assurance, we want to be as transparent both to the donors and supporters of the association as well as to the beneficiaries. And in doing so, it is our sincere hope and aspiration that the joint efforts that we put together in this to serve the vulnerable in our communities will continue to foster more collaboration in our efforts to achieve the desired effects in these affected areas. I thank you so much for your presence this morning, and we know the future holds bright for Ghana. Thank you very much, colleagues.